And we're back. This is the great classic rock debate. I'm Kenny.
And I'm Steve.
And we happen to be Rodney Less at the moment. We don't know if he's going to come along and join us or not. We hope that he does. It always makes it a little more interesting. But we talk anything and everything classic rock. We try to keep it interesting. We try to have fun. We also try to be kind of topical when there's stuff that's going on that relates to our subject matter. We try to talk about that. And we've even made a point in the past when a significant person from the classic rock genre passes away, we try to take at least a few minutes to talk about that. So nobody passed away this week. Oh, let me add this real quick. If you're watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. We will love you for that. Okay. Now, nobody passed away this week. However, there was a pretty big piece of news, and that was Aerosmith. I mean, dude, they're one of the most not just long-term rockers, but they were there in the early days. They cut their first album in 73, so not quite 60s, but early 70s. And they announced that they were retiring from the road, no more touring. I don't know if that means there will be more albums or not. I have a feeling it won't be much, but who knows? But no more touring. And I understand that that is related to Steve Tyler's
Tyler.
vocal cord, some kind of vocal cord injury or ailment or something. Tell me what you know.
I had heard, and I knew a while ago that he had a vocal cord injury because we had tickets to see them several years ago.
Okay.
But what I had heard was that he had injured his larynx.
Okay.
And I had heard from a rumor, and if you're not familiar with Eddie Trunk, he's a longtime DJ, and he's got a radio show on Sirius XM, and he knows a lot of these guys.
Okay.
He had heard that there was an incident where he possibly would have ran into something like a piece of equipment in the studio or on the stage somewhere that damaged larynx, because it's a very rare injury.
Okay.
And because you typically don't, you can, tear a vocal cord singing, but injuring your larynx is a little bit different. It's a physical from impact.
That's like trauma. I mean, something impacted that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's what the rumor is. But again, it's a rumor. I don't know if how true that is.
Right.
But
I did a quick little skim and I didn't get anything in detail. It just said vocal cord type of injury. So and it's at their age, and we know that rock stars live a kind of rough lifestyle.
Yes, indeed.
And at their age, it's fair to assume that there's probably assorted health issues going on. So perhaps this was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And they said, you know what? We're at the point now. Let's just go ahead and be done with the touring. Touring takes a great physical toll, So if you're already dealing with other things, that's just going to make it worse. So anyway, I looked at this and said, okay, this is sort of the end of an era. Aerosmith is not dead and buried yet, but if they're no longer touring, this is the end of an era. So why don't we do an Aerosmith discussion tonight? And we'll just sort of do a chronology. We'll go back to the early days and bring it forward. And we'll go through that weird period in the 80s when they sort of disappeared and then they came crashing back unexpectedly. So, all right. Well, listen, I'll tell you what, I'll start things off because they recorded their first album in 73. And I know that you were 4 years away from being born at that time. So I'll just give a quick cover of those early days. Now, the first album in 73 actually contained the song Dream On, which for me, when I think of the term classic rock, this song is right there in the upper echelon elite classic rock songs. Aerosmith has a lot of great songs, but few fit that term classic rock quite as well as Dream On. So Dream On was on that album. It was released as a single and it did not do well. It got into like the top 50 or so and then disappeared. So at that point in time, they still didn't really have a hit. Now they released Same Old Song and Dance after that, which didn't chart. They released Train Kept a Rollin', that didn't chart, but then Sweet Emotion in 1975, which actually got to number 36 on the charts. So for the for most of the music world, listening world out there, Sweet Emotion would have been the first time they ever heard of Aerosmith. It is my understanding that I'm from Florida, but it is my understanding that in the Northeast, they had developed quite a regional reputation there. They were pretty well known in that area and
Boston.
popular, but just not quite on a nationwide scale yet. Okay. So then they released their next album, which is Get Your Wings. All right. And I'm trying to think of which one of these songs. Here we go. Get Your Wings. Oh, actually, Same Old Song and Dance and Train Kept It Rolling were from that album. And then Sweet Emotion, which was released in 75, was from Toys in the Attic. And I think that one, yeah, it was a platinum. That was a platinum album. So that one sold really big. Actually, the first album, Aerosmith, eventually became platinum, but not at that time. So that this one, Toys in the Attic, sold really well. Sweet Emotion became a hit. Now this is interesting. Walk This Way was released as a single and also failed to chart. Now, listen to what happened next, because Aerosmith was now developing a reputation. 3 years after the fact, they re-released Dream On, and it's huge this time around. Big rock hit. It went to number 6 on the pop charts. And so they were now firmly established as a top tier rock band, having now had 2 big hits, Sweet Emotion and now Dream On. So then they re-release Walk This Way, which now becomes a big hit and goes to number 10 on the pop charts. So at this point in time, they are really rocketing on an upward trajectory. 3 massive hits, Sweet Emotion, Dream On, and Walk This Way. Okay. Now, moving forward from there, let's go to.
Can I just add something real quick?
Please do. Please do.
About Sweet Emotion.
Okay.
So I don't know if you know this, but they released a video for that in the early, probably around 92, 93.
Okay.
And which I found was strange because I'm like, that song is 20 years old at that point. Why are they releasing a song? But it seems like they have a history of re-releasing songs, especially
right. And think about Bob Seger did it too. He released a video for Night Moves.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was kind of cool because in a way the bands were saying, you know what, there was no MTV when we made this song, and this song deserves a video. So let's just go ahead and do one.
Of course.
Yeah. So I thought it was cool. All right. So look at who's joining us. Rodney, Paul, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you. We are about 3 or 4 minutes in. We're talking Aerosmith. We've given them a little bit of introduction, and I went through a brief history of their very early chart success. And now Steve is talking about their video for Sweet Emotion. So go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, it is a great video. It is a classic. It's got all the elements you want from a rock video. It's got sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Well, there you go.
The video really is somebody calling like a 1-900 number and talking to an attractive woman, and then it closes at the end of it. I think
that's not Sweet Emotion.
Yeah, it is
Sweet Emotion. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, from the 90s, they had released a music video.
Oh, okay, because that.
And so when they hang up, all you can hear is the voice and like you see the lips. And then when she hangs up at the end,
like a heavy set woman.
Exactly.
Right.
But that was kind of really my first introduction to that song. I obviously had heard of Aerosmith, but a lot of the earlier stuff, the only stuff I had heard of was Dream On, and then Sweet Emotion and Walk This Way.
Walk This Way.
You'll get to Walk This Way probably. What happened in the 80s with Run DMC.
Right.
But that was kind of my introduction to like early Aerosmith. In fact, I may have said this before. I had a hard time convincing my best friend at the time that Dream On was an Aerosmith song because Steven Tyler's voice sounds completely different from everything.
Yeah.
around
It's
that.
It's a wonderful vocal delivery of that song. I mean, the emotion that song is intended to communicate, it does. It comes through.
well now I think Kenny may know the answer to this, but Steve may not because he's younger. When Steven Tyler refers, "You can't catch me because the rabbit done died." Yes, it did. Steve, any idea what that means?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
Kenny?
No, I do not know.
Back in the day, that's how they did pregnancy tests. And they would give this enzyme from you to the rabbit, and the rabbit died. That means that you are not the father. You're not pregnant. The
Oh,
woman's not pregnant.
okay.
So that's why he says that.
Oh, okay. Wow, who knew? Okay, so Paul, before I go any further here, real quick, any thoughts or comments on Dream On, Sweet Emotion, or Walk This Way? 70s Walk This Way, not 80s.
No. Did you talk about some of the early covers? They covered Walking the Dog
And Train Kept a Rolling.
Those were all blues standard
Correct.
songs they covered. There was one more, Mamakin, right?
Correct.
Oh yes. I mean,
Guns N' Roses
Train
covered
Kept
that
a Rolling
too.
and Mamakin. Man, those are blistering tracks.
Yeah, exactly. And they were really laying the foundation for their identity. We're a hard blues-based rock band, and sex, drugs, rock and roll are going to make up a significant amount of our lyrical content, and that's what we do, and we have a lot of fun doing it. And they had a real party anthemic type of rock sound. They did. Okay, so I'm gonna move forward now into the second part of the 70s. Now their next few songs may got a little bit of airplay, but they didn't turn into really big hits. Those would have been Last Child, Home Tonight, Back in the Saddle probably got a little more, Draw the Line, Kings and Queens, and then for me this is significant. In 1978, when that film Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was made,
Yes.
and the soundtrack was all Beatles songs done by different artists, okay? And Aerosmith was selected to do Come Together. Now, there were not really a lot of hits from that album. Did you guys ever see that movie, by the way?
I just started watching it again the other day. It's a lot worse than I thought it was.
Oh, okay. Because I've read comments like on YouTube or whatever, when people say, I went back and rewatched it and liked it more than I did when I first saw it or whatever, so I haven't seen it. But Aerosmith's version of Come Together, to me, it's surprisingly good. Now, I mean, maybe that shouldn't even be a surprise, but man, if the Beatles version is there, Aerosmith's version is just below it. I thought it was an excellent version. And I do believe to this day, classic rock radio plays them equally. I don't think they play the Beatles more than Aerosmith. So I thought they did it.
And I want to say maybe the first version I heard was the Aerosmith version.
Could have been. Yeah.
And they're both,
You're so young.
Yeah, they're both fantastic.
Yeah, they really are.
I would agree. Like, I've never heard a Beatles song covered by somebody else that is really just as equally as good as the Beatles version. That's probably the only example that I can think of.
What about I'm Down? That's also a Beatles song, right?
It is, yeah.
And they covered that on Permanent Vacation. And they cover another Beatles song, I thought. I'm trying to think. I know it's at least two, but go on.
Okay, well, anyway, for me, that was a real standout track. But other than that, the 77, 78, 79 were kind of dry years for Aerosmith. But they were still recording albums. They just weren't really hitting the charts. And then the 80s started, and they just had this long dry spell. I mean,
well, Joe Perry left the band for a while.
Yeah. Joe Perry did, yes, correct. He had the Joe Perry Project, I think, was his band. Yeah,
exactly. And then they had Lightning Strikes, which I hated when it came out, or whatever the album's called.
Yeah, the album was called "Rockin' a Hard Place."
Yeah, and I went back and listened to it in the last year. It's pretty good. I have to admit. I don't think Joe Perry plays on the album. I can't remember my poop anymore.
There is a track called "Let the Music Do the Talking." I don't know if you were going to get to it. That is probably good song from kind of that era.
Yeah, that was from Done with Mirrors in '85. It did not chart, but I do know the song you're talking about. But all of these years, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, they're recording albums or releasing singles and nothing is charting. So, you know, if you're paying attention, you probably have to be thinking to yourself by this time, Aerosmith, they're kind of over. Like, you know, they're still recording, but nothing's working for them. And I don't know what their tours, I don't know how their tours were, but they weren't doing well with sales or radio play. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In 87, I don't know whose idea it was. They decide to re-release Walk This Way as a fusion project with Run DMC. Okay, now, just to prove I have no reluctance to say I was wrong. I mean, I don't enjoy saying it, but I'll say it. All right. The first time I heard this, and I think it was on MTV, I said, wow, Aerosmith is really scraping the bottom of the barrel. I mean,
I said the same thing.
I mean, I said they're so desperate to try to sell a record. They're collaborating with rappers, which is like, that's like the polar opposite of rock. They're collaborating with rappers and dredging up one of their great songs from the 70s and now taking a dump all over it by turning it into a rap song. I just thought, this is the final nail in the coffin. Their career is officially over at this point. Boy, how wrong was I? Okay, go ahead, fellas. Whatever you got to say.
That was
Go ahead, Steve.
That's probably the first time I was when I was first introduced to Aerosmith was Walk This Way with the Run DMC version. And I was, 10 years old, so hadn't heard the earlier stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And I'm 10 years old. And so that was my first impression. I thought it was an original song at that point.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
It started a short-lived trend, and there was some potential there between rap bands and metal bands. Like Anthrax did some stuff. It was pretty good.
Yep.
And Public Enemy, I think. Anthrax and Public Enemy, I can't remember anymore.
Well, then that there was a resurgence in the 90s and kind of the mid to late 90s with rap metal.
Well, I mean, not what you're going at, but before that, Steve. No, you're talking about Stuck Mojo and stuff like that,
Limp
which is
Bizkit.
awesome. Oh God, don't ever say
yeah.
that again.
Corey Feldman.
No, but they made that movie Judgment Night. I don't know if you guys ever saw it with.
Oh yeah, Biohazard did the
Yeah.
soundtrack, or it's
No.
on the soundtrack.
You didn't see that movie? It was with Judd Nelson, I think.
I did not see it.
Emilio-
I don't think I've
bad.
even heard of it.
But the best track on there, and this has nothing to do with Aerosmith, is Mudhoney and Sir Mix-a-Lot, both from Seattle.
Okay.
Did a really cool song called Freak Mama, and it actually got a lot of airplay, and it actually did pretty good.
Okay.
But yeah, so Aerosmith started a short-lived trend, and Steve's right, in about 8 more years, that those would literally fuse with Stuck
Okay.
Mojo.
Well, for the purposes of, we're doing a chronology of Aerosmith. It
Yeah.
reignited.
Yes, it
I
did.
mean, I would have never predicted this in a million years. I was so wrong. I'm like, this is the end of their career. Oh, no, it wasn't, buddy. So next thing, dude looks like a lady, goes to number 14. Next
Boy,
thing,
it was a whole
Permanent Vacation.
album, Permanent Vacation. It blew up.
correct.
Yes.
And I mean, blew up as in nuclear blew up. This wasn't just a small blow up. It was huge. Yes. And so Angel went to number 3. Ragdoll went to number 17. That was all in 1987. They did a remake of Rockin' Pneumonia and the Boogie Woogie Flu. That's a 50s song. They did that from the Less Than Zero soundtrack, which I didn't even know about. And then in 89, they released Pump, which blew up the same way that Permanent Vacation did. Love in an Elevator, Janie's Got a Gun. This carried on into the 90s with What It Takes and The Other Side and Monkey on My Back. I mean, by this time, they were as big as any rock band in the rock scene.
Oh yeah. And I was in junior high when Pump came out, and that was like the album for everybody in junior high.
Yes.
Like Aerosmith was the biggest rock band on earth.
Right. And their chart success and record sales at this point was literally crushing whatever they did in the 70s.
Yeah.
Which is,
yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it because I think so highly of their 70s output, but they were crushing that now. That practically didn't even exist anymore.
They reinvented themselves. Like to where girls would listen to their music. In the 70s, no girl was listening.
True.
There may be Dream On,
Yeah.
Right.
but and
Yeah,
then
like
go ahead. Like
My
a Perfect
feet-
Vacation. I think it's my number 2 song of them is Girl Keeps Coming Apart. They have a whole horn section as a rocking song, and then Steve and I both love Take Me to the Other Side.
oh yeah,
They were bringing it.
you brought up a great point, Paul, because my wife, Aerosmith, I think that's her favorite band. And like I had, female cousins who, everybody, whether you're a girl, boy, man, woman, everybody loved Aerosmith and they were really into them. So they had a mass appeal across demographics. My parents liked them. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it was if think about this, if you have any interest in rock at all, it's hard not to like them because they're hitting on every cylinder. There's something for everybody there with what they do. Good, solid, hard rock. Really, I mean, those guys are really talented musicians. And Steven Tyler, what can you say about him as a front man? I mean, his voice alone, but then the theatrics and the personality and all that,
I consider them the America's version of the Stones.
Yeah.
For as long as they've been together.
That's perfectly fair, yeah.
And the number of hit songs and just the appeal across generations.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember, they were on Saturday Night Live and they did a Wayne's World skit, and it's like the greatest skit ever because Dana Carvey's actually a really good drummer in real life.
Okay.
So he's Garth. He's playing the drums. And they're singing along, and like everyone's looking back. They can't believe how good Dana Carvey is on the drums. They're like, "Oh my god, he can actually play!" And they're like, he's like going crazy.
Wow,
it was really cool. Wayne's World, party time.
Right.
So you got Aerosmith singing your song. Think about that.
Right.
It's cool.
Okay, so moving forward from there, I mean, think about this: 87, 88, 89, 90. They're just filling the airwaves with one rock classic after another. There was no slowdown. I mean, those songs were constant and they were all good songs. It wasn't like, this one's not really quite up to snuff. They were really good, solid rock songs. Okay, so 93, they release Get a Grip, which contains Living on the Edge, Eat the Rich, Crying, Amazing, again, a whole bunch of good songs.
Crazy. Did you say Crazy?
No, Crazy was from, there it is. Crazy, well, it was from Get a Grip. Yeah, that was 94. Okay, my bad. I didn't see it yet. So again, just one hit song after the next. And this has been going on now. This is going back to 87 all the way through 94. That's 7 years of just virtually nonstop output from them. And it's really good, solid rock material. It's not, there's no
solid hits, great music videos. I mean, they were on MTV constantly.
Yeah. And I never saw them in concert, but I can just imagine
I saw him. God, he was in Auburn. They played for 42 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's a disappointment.
It's interesting you say that, Kenny, because I've never seen them in concert. Although I've had tickets to see them 3 times, and they were in the last couple of years, and they're canceled for the reasons that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
But this goes to my point that, like, I like Aerosmith. I think they're probably America's greatest rock band, but they're not like in my top. I don't love them, and they have a lot of really great songs, and I've never liked them enough to be willing to shell out in my teenage years money to go see them live. And I'm just curious. It seems like you probably feel the same way. And
I do. Yeah, because when I think of all of the bands that I did see, and boy, that's a long list. Remember back in those days, it was inexpensive to go to concerts. But Aerosmith, I don't know. Hearing them on the radio or whatever, or buying the CDs was good enough. I didn't need to see them in concert.
Yeah, but Kenny and I were in a weird position because the West Palm Beach Auditorium was for the lower level bands.
Yeah.
And then Fort Lauderdale was called the Sportatorium, which was hell on earth. And there was a sunrise.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd go down to Miami, Orlando, Steve. So a lot of bands.
True.
I saw the Stones in the Orange Bowl. That was 70 miles away. Because a U2 in there, not Springsteen, but Billy Joel. So it was hard for Kenny and I to see those bigger bands because we'd have to make a day and night.
The Sportatorium was where I saw most of the bigger bands, and that was just a horrible. Yeah, it took you forever to get there, and it was 2 lanes out into the middle of the Everglades, and it was just
Yeah.
horrible. Yeah.
Like
Well,
you
for
would
me,
take
I
a
think they
go
were
ahead.
always touring. It felt like every year they were on tour, and it was like they were always playing like an amphitheater size place, so like 8 to 10,000,
Okay.
during the summer. And I felt like, yeah, I'll see him eventually. I'll get around to it. And it that day never came, unfortunately.
Steve, when we would go to the sportatorium, we would take a baseball bat and hit each other in the groin, so we could get ourselves in that mood. Because hey, dude, we have 10, 15,000 drunken idiots going down a
Yep.
2-lane road. Me
Two
and my
lanes.
sister went to Rush, and I said I will kill myself if I go east. So we went and we ended up in the Indian reservation. The guy goes, "Yeah, you can come on through, and here's how you get out." And we were home like an hour and a half. We would have been home
Wow.
for hours.
Wow.
That was 82, I think.
Well,
Wow. Yeah.
you would have to hit me in the groin with a baseball bat to go see Rush, but
I
Okay.
could arrange that.
Okay. So listen, we're going to get back on topic now. So listen, although they've had tremendous, at this point in time now, we're in the mid 90s, although they've had tremendous success on the charts and with sales, they do not yet have a #1 song. Okay. They've gotten into the top 10 a couple of times, but they do not yet have a #1 song. That brings us to 1998 and the movie Armageddon. Armageddon, which personally I liked. Not Oscar material, but I liked it. I thought it was a good movie and I thought it was entertaining. Aerosmith delivers a song on the Armageddon soundtrack, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, which was their very first #1 song. And even though it's not my favorite Aerosmith song, I was so happy for them that they finally had that incredible runaway single that just topped the charts and everybody loved.
that's interesting. That's so, and that's not on any of their records. I think it was just part of the soundtrack.
That is correct. Yeah.
I
By
think
the way,
you're
we
right,
got our
yeah.
warning, guys. So we got it's counting down from 10 minutes.
I mean, that song seemed like it was on the radio like every 10 minutes.
It
back
was.
then. And I forgot about that song, to be
Me
honest,
too.
but
I forgot.
Yeah.
it is a good song. And,
Yeah.
Liv Tyler is in that movie too. So,
Right.
I like the Goo Goo Dolls song from that movie. That's a good song, although it's kind of sappy.
Wait, wasn't that from City of Angels?
No, it's from Armageddon, right?
I
are you
don't
sure
know.
that wasn't on Deep Impact, the soundtrack?
No, Steve's trying to be funny now.
Okay, hang on. Let me look Google Dolls. Let me find it here. I don't see a Google Dolls song on
Armageddon?
no, there's Journey, there's ZZ Top, there's Bob Seger.
Oh,
I
maybe
don't
I'm
s-
confused.
I think you're getting it confused with the City of Angels movie
I think so too.
with Nicolas Cage.
It was Iris was the name of that song.
Yeah.
Which was sappy, but it was a pretty good song.
Yeah, exactly. I
okay.
And
like
by
it.
the way, Professor of Rock did a video. That song sounds a lot like that song by Collective Soul.
It does.
December. Yeah.
The first
Yeah.
time I heard it, that I thought it was Collective Soul. Actually,
I think Google Dolls
Why do I
lifted it,
think that? Oh my God.
Yeah, I think they
All right.
lifted it.
It's
not,
okay,
not
Paul.
making any accusations. I like
Yeah.
both songs, but I think that they lifted it. Yeah.
Oh, it's been 25 years, so
Yeah. So who cares? Right.
Uh,
Okay. Right.
but you may want to check and make sure it's not on Deep Impact, Paul. That was the
Right.
Kenny. That was the other meteorite. movie.
Meteorite. Yeah,
Came out in the
exactly.
same year. Steve's right. They came out in the same year.
They just weeks apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I've got an idea. I'm going to copy your idea. But anyway, so just to finish off the thoughts on I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. It's a ballad. I don't think it's one of the best Aerosmith songs by any means, but I was so happy for them that after all these decades of hard working, making great songs, they finally hit the top of the charts, and it was a bona fide smash. It really was. Okay, moving forward from there, we jump to 2001. The album is called Just Push Play. And once again, they have an unexpected smash hit, and that's Jaded. Okay. I thought this song has all the hallmarks of a good Aerosmith song, a good rock song. It's got a good rhythm, whatever. And it went to #7 on the chart, so it's successful. But it's funny because most people, if I bring it up, they go, I don't like it that much. I think it's a great song. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it's probably I love that song, and it's probably the last hit that they may have had.
It was.
It was the last memorable song from them.
Yeah,
And
it was.
that's been almost 25 years. I mean, 23 years.
2001, 23 years. Yeah.
God. I'm not sure if I remember that song, but I'll have to go back and listen to it. I probably, as soon as I hear, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do the oh
You'll
yeah.
you'll recognize it instantly. It got a lot of play in 2001.
Yep.
It's very disappointing to me that it's not played on the new classic rock playlist now, because they're playing tons of songs from that period, but they don't play Velvet Revolver.
Yeah, what's disappointing is I felt like Aerosmith was back. Not that they had gone anywhere, but I thought, oh, here's another album from Aerosmith.
Right.
Okay, it's got 1 or 2 songs on it.
Right.
Not the best album, but Jaded is really good. And then you didn't really hear much after that.
That
from
was
them.
pretty much it. Now they did release a couple more albums. I'll tell you the names of them. Maybe I'm wrong, because it was a greatest hits album called Oh Yeah, Ultimate Aerosmith Hits. There was that, and then and they released another album in 2004 called Honkin' on Bobo.
Yes.
Which had they did a version of Baby Please Don't Go, which is, I think that was a Van Morrison. Wasn't that a Van Morrison song from the 60s?
Sound. Do either one of you know what?
It actually could have been, Van Morrison could have taken it from somebody else, because it has a 50s kind of sound to it. So I don't know.
Does either
But,
one
well,
know
they're
what-
all, I think that record is all blues covers.
You are correct. Yes, it was. It was. Yeah.
Either one of you know what honking on Bobo means?
I'm afraid to ask.
Yeah.
It's woman giving oral sex.
I had a feeling.
That's what it means.
I had a feeling.
See, I'm an expert on the Aerosmith slang. Just come to me.
You certainly are. Okay. Well, anyway, that is a quick emphasis on the word quick. That's a quick run through the chronology of Aerosmith. Now, do you guys have any particular memories or nostalgic moments or favorite songs that you want to talk
I
about?
want to say, Steve and I have talked about this before. If you hear Eddie Van Halen, who saw the Led Zeppelin, and Aerosmith saw Led Zeppelin, and evidently the story was Eddie Van Halen was unimpressed with the amounts of guitar sounds that Jimmy Page could do live.
Okay.
Because Led Zeppelin used a lot of overdubs. That means one guitar on one track, another guitar on another track, and maybe a third. So Aerosmith avoided that problem by having what's his name? Golly, forgot the guy's name. Brad
Whitford.
Yeah, Brad Whitford on rhythm guitar, and then Joe Perry could concentrate on solos, and it brought another. It's the same thing, same form as Guns N' Roses.
Okay.
They don't have to worry about the overdubs in concert. The guy could just play the melody of the song. The other guy can start ripping. I don't know, Steve.
Yeah. Well, I would say, you never watched or listened to a Led Zeppelin concert and said, they seem to be missing a guitar part.
I didn't say that. Eddie Van Halen did.
Yeah, I would say, number one, I have a lot of fond memories of Aerosmith in the 94, 93, 94-ish for reasons I won't go get into.
Okay, I can kind of imagine. Yeah.
It'll be whippet time.
But Paul and I have a great Joe Perry story.
Go ahead, you tell it.
Oh, Paul, you're better at telling the stories than I am. So it involves roller coasters.
We go to Universal.
Islands of Adventure.
We're going to ride the Hulk. And we're like 50 feet from getting on. And all of a sudden, this elevator opens up. And it's Joe Perry. And I think they gave him like 40 downers. The dude could barely walk.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, everyone there going, it's Joe Perry. And,
we were the next train.
Okay. And then Joe Perry, they cut in front of us. And we're like, what the F is this? Does Joe Perry get to go in front of everybody in line for his whole life? And he was so like stoned. I don't know if he was smoking pot or anything, but he was gone.
Okay.
Right, Steve?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But they do. I come to find out they do have like a VIP pass where you pay a couple hundred. At least back then, pay a couple $100s, and you have a private tour and you get to cut to the front of the line. But we were the next train to get on, and they're like, "Hold up, we got to let this VIP come through." And we're like, "What is this?" And we're like, "Oh my God, it's Joe Perry!" And he gets on the line, and we got to wait. And I remember, I think we yelled something because we weren't mad about Joe Perry. We were just mad that we were supposed to be next to the line.
Right, right.
And he wanted to play his guitar on the roller coaster. They took it away from him at the last second. No, that's not true.
No,
Okay.
but I
Good.
remember I yelled something out just because I was mad that I regret now. But I was just like, you guys were better in the 70s or something.
Wow. Wow. Luckily, he doesn't remember it.
Or
Okay.
I think, or he didn't care either way.
Yeah. Okay. We're about to run out of time, so I'm just going to add this final comment, and that is, over the past, I don't know, 40 years, I guess, virtually every time I hear some new rock band, I'm going to say 90% of the time, my first thought is there's a strong element of Aerosmith in their sound. It's like so many bands are influenced by Aerosmith. And I just feel like it's the ultimate compliment a band can receive
Sure.
when all these other bands are trying to sound like you, so.
Well, I mean, it's like it's brilliant what you just said, because you're like, if let's say Steve and I are good, we're three of us are good musicians. We got to go on a singer, and if he comes in like, you don't sound like Steve Perry, goodbye. You know, I mean,
Steve Tyler, yeah.
Steven Tyler, goodbye.
Yeah.
You know, Steve Perry is another guy you don't sound like, but
Right.
but yeah, no, it's just like he's such an unmistakable voice and talent. It's just unique, and he's got a powerful. It's just unique.
Yeah, he is. Okay, guys, I have to do this because we're ticking down right now. So this is the Great Classic Rock Debate. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul.
I'm Steve.
Yes, if you're listening right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. We will love you for that. Until we meet again, we'll see you next time.